before I start this video, let's get some stuff straight. There are instances with kids, of a good few instances. Well, there's no such thing as a good few, but you understand what I'm saying. Where a person who is not that child's biological parent will marry the biological parent. In other words, a stepmother and a stepfather who step in and raise that child when another biological parent was not there for various reasons. Divorce could be one of the reasons, and there could be other good or bad reasons. There are some people who are doting step parents. So what I'm not trying to do is say that step parenting is an inherently evil thing. There are some people who will raise children that are not their own, and they do an exceptional job. This is why adoption also works, but I'm going to stick with the step parenting in this video. Okay. Step parent season is a season that can last for a lot of years, and some kids can grow up with the best stepmom and stepdad because they're one of their biological parents was just not cutting the mustard, or because the father or mother remarried, or whoever remarried. That's not what I'm going to discuss here, but I needed to give that disclaimer because I'm going to probably go hard in this video. Because there's another side to that we need to discuss. In Oklahoma City, a neighbor gets worried when she looks in the bedroom window of two little boys, ages 3 and 4. They're half naked and covered in what looks to her to be feces. She raises enough of a stink that the police are concerned and come through. They knock on the door, and the boy's stepfather answers and responds. And immediately they are met with the stench of feces and urine that's so strong that they had to go and get hazmat suits before coming back. Of course, the man initially lies and says he's by himself, but didn't even fight the cops and let him in. And so when they went to the room where the boys had been locked down, the cops said the walls were covered in feces. Feces was all over the floor. It was everywhere, and they had no clothes on. Imagine going back in there in hazmat suits. And then this man looked them straight in the eye, being their stepfather, and said, their mother needed sleep, so I locked them in here for 12 straight hours. That's toddlers, kids who need movement, who are in the process of their development and growth. There was also an 11-month-old child that is his biological daughter, but it didn't specify if the mother gave birth to the little girl. She wasn't locked down, but the boys were, but they removed all 3 children. Because according to this neighbor, it wasn't uncommon to see the non-closed windows with those boys with no clothes on, and their faces and little hands and body is covered in feces. Both of the parents have been arrested and each have a $250,000 bond. The article doesn't mention 2 things. Number one, it tells you that he's the biological father of the daughter, but does not specify if those boys' mother actually gave birth to the little girl. Okay. Number 2, this article does not specifically say if the 2 biological boys had the same father or different fathers, or what place in life they may be. No disrespect to you that are step parents, but here's why that's significant. This man had no qualms about leaving these boys unclothed, covered in hazardous waste, and locking them in a room for their mother's sake and her acquiescing and going along with it. Let's keep it real. The reason that this was easy for him to do is because he had no regard for those little boys and saw them as an obstacle in their way. Because unlike that 11-month-old little girl, those boys are not his bloodline. There are people who will literally marry or be with someone knowing that their kids were never a packaged deal, and those kids are going to find out soon enough that they are treated as a problem, as a burden. And look, I know some people will say, well, the little girl was 11 months old. That's why he didn't lock her down. Newsflash. 3 and 4 years old make you a toddler. You still need certain types of attention. What woman in her right mind is a young 20-something-year-old mother needs to sleep for 12 hours when you have a 3 and 4-year-old who at this point in their life should be getting ready for preschool if they were going to go learning how to spell their name? Why would you acquiesce to your children walking around naked and covered in hazardous waste? Because she resents their father or fathers, so it was easy to let them be abused. Tell me I'm lying. No civilized person does this. This is not a story. Don't come at my page talking about, oh, she did the best that she could. She didn't even try to have no clothes on those boys and was so careless that she left the window open, which I think is a blessing and a curse at the same time, so that a neighbor can say those little boys had a hopeless help me look in their eyes, covered in what looked like feces, and for the cops to go in there and find out it was true. This is one of the worst stories I've read this year, because for her to allow that to happen to her own bloodline shows she has no regard and shows that they are an extension of the father or fathers of those boys. And whether those fathers were in the wrong and didn't claim them or not, she was responsible for their care. And probably did this because she resented ever being with their father or fathers to begin with. So it's easy to let another man come in and lock them up. And that was just as easy, if not easier, for him because they are not his bloodline. It's not stepmom and stepdaddy season for everybody. Not everybody can be around your children. And I feel in this case that law enforcement got these boys out of this situation just in time, because if they can get adopted by the right couple at 3 and 4 years old, because they took the 11-month-old too, which I think should happen. You can bounce back from not knowing how to read and write at 3 and 4 years old, I believe. You're just a little bit late to development. But I can't help but wonder if that 4-year-old knows his own mama doesn't love him to let that happen. 12 hours locked in a room. Didn't specify whether they were given water or food or anything, but we know they were unclothed and covered in hazardous waste. I just thoroughly dislike that children are suffering like this in the United States, because in this country, in the quote, non-quote free world, this shouldn't be this way. Be careful about who you marry and allow your children around. And also be careful with who you procreate with.